Welcome to episode 5 of the Launchpad podcast, where women leaving corporate careers for entrepreneurship learn how to turn decades of expertise into digital visibility, authority, and real business growth. Last week, we talked about something every entrepreneur eventually learns the hard way. You don't actually own your social media followers until you build a relationship with them with email. That conversation was about strategy. It was about the how. But before we get too far into the mechanics of bringing an idea to market, I want to pause for a moment and restate something even more important.
One, two, three, four.
The why. The inspiration that makes someone take on the insurmountable odds of business ownership in the first place. Because entrepreneurship isn't logical, it's emotion based and it's deeply personal. For women over 40, something remarkable is happening right now. More than 50% of all new businesses being started in the United States are being launched by Gen X and Boomer women. Let that sink in. And here's something even more interesting. Between 45 and 54 are one of the fastest growing groups of new entrepreneurs in America, which means the women who spent decades building companies for someone else are now building companies of their own. That's not a trend, that's a shift. And every one of those women eventually arrives at the same moment, the moment most entrepreneurs quit. Today, we're going to talk about that moment. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Suzette Cotto, founder of Innovate Launch. Let's dive into today's episode. When the universe says not yet, the exact moment successful women entrepreneurs refuse to quit. Let me tell you about the moment most women entrepreneurs quit. It's not when no one who can help you go to market sees your vision. It's not when you have no more credit on that high limit card. And it's not when your partner's telling you to go back to your high earning corporate identity. It's much quieter than that. It's the moment when you've done everything you know how to do and the world doesn't respond. No traction, no visibility, no momentum. You create your value statement. You search for resources. You look for buy-in from the people who can change your trajectory. You refine the message. You sharpen the offer. You show up again and again, explaining what you do and why it matters. And still, the universe stays silent. But silence doesn't always mean no. Sometimes the silence is telling you one thing, girl, not yet. And that's the moment that separates the women who go back from the women who stay. You stay because you know you will never go back to that soul sucking world of cashing other people's bottom lines in for their own dreams. You know what it feels like to pour your intelligence, your leadership, and your energy into building value that ultimately lines the pockets of investors. You've seen how the passion that once inspired you slowly gets diluted by quarterly targets and shareholder pressure. Like Elphaba and Wicked, you've seen behind the wizard's curtain those glossy corporate brochures about culture and brand, the promises about purpose and belonging, carefully written language designed to create goodwill with buyers, while the people inside the organization quietly burn out trying to deliver something that no longer exists. And once you've seen that clearly, you can't unsee it. So when the silence shows up in your own business, when the audience hasn't found you yet, when the traction hasn't arrived yet, you don't go back. You stay. Because this time, you're building your own dream. It's story time, and the first story is mine. So, years ago, I found myself standing in a place I never expected. I had built a successful career in internet technology, and I had spent decades helping companies grow. I helped a tech startup go public, launched digital strategies, built systems, and helped create millions of dollars in revenue for organizations that trusted my experience. I was the golden girl and solid in my ability to make things happen. But success inside a company does not always translate into security. In 2002, I was laid off. And then a few years later, I was laid off again. Not because I wasn't contributing, but because the companies I worked for overstated, overspent, and overvalued what they delivered. And suddenly, I found myself standing in a moment many accomplished women eventually face. I was a single mom over 40 on unemployment, and the career I had invested decades in building was no longer going to give me the life I wanted. That moment forces a decision, a real one. The kind where you sit quietly and ask yourself a question that changes the direction of your life. If I can build this for other companies, why can't I build it for myself? So I started with what I had: a tax return, a laptop, and faith that I knew I was a top expert in my field. I had made millions of dollars for companies. I was certain I could do it for myself. And that is how my company, Innovate Social Media, began. Not with investors, not with a team, not with a safety net, just conviction. And the decision that I was not going back. A few years later, after helping produce and promote the documentary film about women and ambition called Pioneers in Skirts, something became even clearer to me. The women I was meeting were standing in the same moment I once stood in. Women over 40, women with decades of experience, women who had built serious careers. But when they stepped into entrepreneurship, something surprising happened. They became invisible. They knew their industries, they knew how to lead, but they didn't know how to translate their expertise into digital visibility. And in today's economy, invisibility costs you everything. And that's why Innovate Launch exists, to help women leaving corporate careers for entrepreneurship build the digital literacy required to grow their companies and be seen online. But every one of those women reaches a moment first, that quiet moment where quitting would feel easier. And that moment shows up in every entrepreneurial story. Take Sarah Blakely. Before she built Spanx, she was driving around Florida selling fax machines door to door. Every day she heard the word no. One night she was getting ready to go out and wanted to wear white pants, but every piece of underwear she owned showed lines through the fabric. So she tried something unconventional. She took a pair of pantyhose and cut the feet off, and suddenly the lines disappeared. And in that moment, she realized something simple. If she had this problem, millions of women probably did too. And that's the moment the idea for Spanx came about. But the next 2 years were filled with rejection. Manufacturer after manufacturer told her no. They didn't see the vision. After all, what patriarchal institution deals with panty lines? They didn't believe the market existed. But Sarah kept going because grit is quiet. Grit is waking up the next morning when the world still doesn't see what you see. Eventually, one manufacturer said yes. One. And that one yes changed everything. So, next, we're going to look at the legendary motivational coach, Mel Robbins. She went through it and hit that place where sleep and PJs felt like the only out. In her early 40s, she and her husband were facing nearly $800,000 in debt. Her husband's restaurant business had collapsed. Bills were piling up. She's talked openly about how stuck she felt during that time. Some mornings she could barely get out of bed. But one night she was watching a rocket launch on television and something clicked. She thought, tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, I'm going to launch myself. And the next morning, when the alarm rang, she counted backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And she forced herself out of bed. That tiny decision became the beginning of what the world now knows as the 5-second rule. Today, Mel is a sought after speaker, coach, and author who motivates the world and me, especially when Pajama Day sounds like a great solution to a day of turmoil. 3 women, 3 stories. 3 moments standing at the edge of quitting. But the breakthrough didn't happen because circumstances suddenly became perfect. The breakthroughs happened because they stayed and focused on their why and a belief that they could change the world with their offer. And the same thing is true in the digital world. Algorithms, they don't recognize you immediately, they learn you. Every article, every podcast, every video. Every time you show up, you are teaching the digital world who you are and what you stand for. Consistency is the signal. And the women who stay consistent long enough move from invisible to unstoppable. So if you're standing in that moment right now, that quiet moment where the world doesn't seem to respond, remember this. When the universe says not yet, it's not telling you to quit. It's asking you one question. Will you stay? And if you're still here listening, I already know something about you. You're not the woman who goes back. You're the woman who stays. You're the woman who understands the life you want to build will never come from returning to a version of success that no longer fits who you've become. But staying doesn't mean doing it alone. And that's why I created the Launch 101 webinar to share the framework that helps women translate decades of experience into real digital visibility and momentum in their businesses. And if you're ready for that next step, you can register for the Launch 101 webinar. Then join the Innovate Launch VIP community because that community is where women who stay go. Both links are in the description in my bio. Women who refuse to quit. Women who are building businesses that finally reflect the experience, wisdom, and authority they've earned over decades. And before we close, I want to say something directly to you. More than anyone in the universe, I see you, I support you, and I want you to be successful. I'm Suzette, the proud founder of Innovate Launch, built for women leaving corporate careers for entrepreneurship. I see you, I support you, and I want you to be successful. I'll see you on the inside. Take care.